Gracias por estar con nosotros hoy. My name is Paul Clark. I'm the director of the UK's Department of International Trade here in Barcelona. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this conference today on waste traceability. I'm delighted to say we have no fewer than 7 UK organisations joining us, representing the best in UK innovation. I, for one, am really excited to hear about the technologies and the solutions that they offer. I'm sure you're just as excited as I am. You all will know better than me how waste management is a huge challenge for countries everywhere. And as we make the transition towards a more circular economy, and we move to a place where we recycle the vast majority of our waste, a really important step is being able to track that waste. The UK government is taking action in this area to help foster innovation. For example, the Environment Bill will lay provisions for electronic waste tracking. The GovTech Catalyst Fund provides £20 million worth of support for companies to provide innovative solutions for the public sector in areas exactly like waste traceability and fighting waste crime, which is costing the UK government hundreds of £millions a year. Here in Barcelona, in the Department for International Trade, our team is dedicated to helping local companies and authorities find the solutions that they need in waste management. And this matching of UK providers to local Spanish buyers is actually only one of the services we offer. So you're aware, we also help companies set up in the UK. We help them address any barriers to this investment. Right now, we're also offering advice around how to prepare for the end of the transition period around Brexit, which is happening at the end of this year. So please do get in touch if you're interested to hear more about what we can offer. At the end of the session, we'll put a slide up with our contact details, so you'll be able to see that and be able to contact us. Without further ado, let's get started, because we have 10 minutes per speaker. So there's going to be 7 speakers, 10 minutes each. We'll do a question and answer session at the end, but also feel free to put any questions in the chat as we go along, and the speakers may be able to answer them in the chat as we go along, or if not, we'll address them at the end. But we won't do a verbal Q&A until the final session. So I think that's it in terms of an introduction. First of all, I'd like to welcome Jacob Haler as the first speaker. He's the Executive Director of the Environmental Services Association, which does a brilliant job in helping the UK to transition, to transform our waste management systems. So Jacob, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you for those kind words about the wonderful job that we do. So yes, it's good morning, everybody, and yeah, thank you very much to the Department for International Trade for this opportunity to give a high-level perspective on behalf of the UK's recycling and waste industry on waste tracking and traceability and why it's important to us. Paul mentioned a couple of the initiatives that the UK government is helping to support, and we think they're really important, and we're very supportive of all that work, and do indeed work closely with the government to try and bring forward some of this tracking and traceability. I think the context for this, I think there has really been a great step change in recent years, just in the last few years even, in terms of the application of technology to recycling services, to waste services. So on the collection side, there's much more application of data, onboard weighing, compositional analysis, and all that's going to be really important, as Paul said, as we move towards a more circular economy and try to drive more and more value out of the materials that we collect. And on the processing side, there's all sorts of innovation happening with people trying to bring forward technologies. There is moves towards more chemical recycling of plastics, for example, waste to fuels, waste to chemicals, waste to hydrogen, all sorts of exciting, innovative things that that people want to achieve going forward, and all of which is supported by strong circular economy policy and legislation. So in the EU context, obviously there's a circular economy package which has been transposed into the UK. So even post-Brexit, the UK will be following that same strong policy framework that will help to drive a lot of good things. Where tracking fits into this, traditionally we've been quite a simple industry, quite a simple logistics industry. There've been low barriers to entry. Paul mentioned some of the criminal activity and the criminal elements. I mean, in the UK, we think that there's around 2 million tons of household and commercial waste that leaks into the illegal sector every single year. It proves very difficult to enforce. The regulators have a really tough time, despite a lot of resources that they put into it, trying to stamp out waste crime. And traceability and waste tracking is a really important tool, we think, to help support regulators and the industry to do the right thing. So in terms of ESA, with the Environmental Services Association, we're the trade body for the recycling and waste industry. Our membership includes all the major players in the UK market, covering all the different activities from collections, sorting, material processing, energy recovery, and landfill final disposal. Our purpose is to deliver a circular economy in the UK. So we see a lot of different organisations talk about a circular economy and what it means to achieve it, but it's our members are the ones who actually have to make the investments, actually have to put the boots and the wheels on the ground and deliver the services, actually put them into action and build the infrastructure and make it all work. So I'm just, as I say, I'm just going to give a very high level overview of waste tracking and how it fits in. I know we've got some excellent examples coming up from the other speakers of the application of technology and different applications. So for us, I was going to focus on two particular aspects of why it's important. I mean, first of all, stopping criminal activity in a domestic context. I mean, one of the most frustrating things seems to be the ease with which criminals and poorly regulated operators or operators against whom seems to be little enforcement. It's the ease with which they're able to get their hands on material, and we see traceability is playing an important role in stopping that material from getting to those less scrupulous operators. And then secondly, in a more sort of global context, people will be well aware that we are part of large-scale global markets for our recyclable materials. The EU relies quite heavily on the export of their recycled materials in order to other parts of the world, Southeast Asia and elsewhere, trying to move that material to the locations where it is actually recycled. And unfortunately, there's not always great transparency over those movements, and you do see it's a minority, but you do see examples, awful examples, where material ends up dumped overseas and not managed properly. And it's really important that we find a way to snuff that out, to make sure that everyone, government, regulators, consumers, all have confidence in those exports and in global markets for recycling. So just moving into a little bit more detail, first of all, thinking about the need to prevent waste crime. The context for this is the circular economy package, which has some very, very ambitious targets, which are going to require a lot of quite radical change in our sector. In order to meet that, we're going to need there's going to need to be a focus on producers in terms of improving the design of packaging and products to make them more recyclable and to drive the worst of sort of packaging formats off the market. There's also going to need to be a focus on consumers and making things as simple and easy for people to recycle as possible, so that we can drive those recycling rates ever higher. And of course, the underpinning, what we're really trying to achieve when we're increasing the quantity and quality of recycling, is we're trying to drive more value out of those materials that people discard. But all of that extra value is going to be brought about through extra services, extra investment, that extra value, but it will also create an extra incentive for criminal activity, particularly in the context of weak or difficult enforcement. And those opportunities are increasingly there to undercut the legitimate sector, and so we need to find new ways of combating that illegal activity to stop it from undermining those legitimate operators who want to make the investments and want to do the right thing. So for us, that's a really important application. And then the other point I mentioned already is in terms of verifying exports. You know, historically we've been very reliant on overseas markets. I think in the UK we export about 15 million tons of material every year for recycling. A few years ago, that was roughly split, a third to China from the UK, a third to the EU from the UK, and a third to the rest of the world. As people may know, China has been driving down the amount of material it's willing to import, which is creating big changes in global material flows, and it's creating a necessity to move into new markets, different markets, but not always done in the best, but not always done with the greatest transparency and with the in the most scrupulous way. From our perspective, our members have signed an exports pledge to make sure that they're doing the right thing. I won't go into the detail of that here, but they have very strict controls over material that they export themselves directly. But there is a challenge because a lot of material does pass through third parties and brokers, and that does create a transparency issue. But greater traceability and trackability would really help in terms of improving that transparency and improving the way those markets operate. So I think, you know, those sort of two key issues are sort of thinking more about those sort of two applications are around how do we stop a negative, but I sort of thought I might just finish on a positive note about the application of technology and tracking in particular in terms of helping a more positive solution, because it can also help us really be one of the tools, part of a suite of tools to really help drive that circular economy. It can really help us to provide better data, which helps us to provide better solutions. It can give us really much better information at a much more granular level, which can match supply and demand. It can help us plan for more efficient services and infrastructure, and it can drive that investment in a circular economy, which is what we all really want to see. So that's it from me. I will hand over to the other guys who will be giving you some really interesting case studies on actual applications of technology and innovation. So thank you very much.
That's great, Jacob. Thanks very much. So our next speaker is Michael Groves from Toplytics.
Hola. Bon dia, everybody, or Toplytics if you're in a general election year. My name is Mike Groves, and I'm the CEO and founder of Toplytics. And we're a data aggregation and analytics business. And what we're doing is we're making the world's waste visible, viable, and valuable. So we're trying to make that system, as Jacob said, which isn't particularly transparent, we're trying to make it more transparent, so that we can build trust in that data at a sort of global basis. And ultimately, really what we're trying to do is drive the unlocking of value in all of that material and for those players in the system. So one of the kind of challenges clearly is the fact that we're sort of not capturing the value in that material currently on a sort of global level, and still a lot of that material, as we know, is still going into a landfill site or a waste dump, or clearly is leaking out of the system, and that leakage could be just leaking into the environment. And obviously we've all heard about, you know, sort of ocean plastics, etc. But obviously there could be criminality attached to that. But clearly there is a lot of inherent value in that, in the material itself, and business models that could unlock value for recyclers, for waste producers, and for their investors as well. And that's really what we're trying to drive, using kind of big data analytics, machine learning, and geospatial analytics to really make that system much more transparent. So the system itself, clearly this isn't a sort of perfect picture, but really, you know, as Jacob was saying, I mean, it is a very, very complex kind of industry in some ways, because you've got multiple players, multiple geographies, multiple materials, multiple outcomes for that material. And that material, of course, is all moved around. So it's moved from the point at which it's generated the waste. It may be moved through 3 or 4 different locations, changes of ownership before something actually happens to it. So that complexity is also, you know, means that there's a level of kind of opacity in the system, which is difficult to unpick. So if you're trying to build business models and trying to sort of improve the outcomes for that material, you've got to try and get a handle on that kind of systemic picture. So that's really what we're trying to do. So we're trying to sort of make this, if you like, schematic, bring this kind of schematic to life by actually literally trying to understand and unpick what's happening to that material and show what's happening to that waste material, what that material is, how much of that material is there, and where is that material going, and what's happening to that material. So really trying to uncover a version of what we would call the waste truth. So the way we are sort of approaching that is really, we're sort of, as a team, we sort of triangulate on 3 things. So we've got guys who work with us who come from the waste industry, have run waste companies, and we sort of understand the circular economy, but we also have a software development team and then a data science team. And if you like, our sweet spot is the triangulation of those 3 things. And what we've done over the last 3 years is we've created an analytics platform we call Waste Map, and we sort of carved out a position in that, what some people call waste tech, other people call smart waste, which seems a contradiction in terms. But that's a sort of fast-growing market. The use of technology to improve the outcomes for this material, and the other companies on this on the session today, you know, there are examples of that as well. So we've got some fantastic partnerships going. We won a competition that was organised by SAP and Google Cloud to find a commercial scalable technology that could drive the circular economy. So we're doing some interesting work with SAP's customers, some of the world's biggest consumer product companies, tracking and tracing and mapping the flow of commercial, industrial, and post-consumer waste flows. And we're also working with DEFRA on the UK government waste tracking project, which I'll talk about in a sec. So in essence, what we do is we're sort of aggregating data from a whole range of different sources. It could be from sensors, smart labels, such as Pragmatic. It could be from databases, spreadsheets, from satellites, from a whole range of different inputs and a whole range of different sources. And within WasteMap, what we then do is we sort of normalize, clean, and we're able to sort of process that data and then generate outputs and analytics for our customers. And our customers really fall into three main types. So we've got companies that generate waste. So their issue is they don't really understand what's happening to that material. They have contracts, but they don't really understand the fate of that material. So we're helping them to understand that, to understand the flow of that material, what happens to it. And then they can start to make decisions about how they could recover some of that material, how they could intervene to improve the outcomes for that material, and how they can be more transparent in terms of their reporting. So that's the waste producer side of things. But then obviously if we take that data and we aggregate that data and anonymize that data, that actually is really interesting and useful for players within the industry who are also interested to understand where that material is. Where does that material concentrate? What's the quality of that material? How much of that material, what's the throughput of that material? How can they improve the quality of inputs to their sort of recycling plants? Where can they find more feedstock? So by aggregating and anonymizing, we're then able to sort of provide a proposition for recyclers, and their investors as well. And then the third customer that we're working with, and this is kind of relating now to the work we're doing with DEFRA and the UK environmental regulators, is the regulator. As we've already heard, regulators want to get better handle on what's happening with waste and waste flows through their areas of jurisdiction. And traditionally, those systems have been very paper-based. And in the UK, the government has said, no, we're going to have mandatory waste tracking systems. So we're one of 2 vendors that is currently building a prototype digital waste tracking system for all of the UK's waste, for hazardous, for non-hazardous, for commercial, for household and municipal waste. And so we're working on that with that system. We're basically taking the same approach with WasteMap. We're applying it to that particular requirement, which is to sort of oversee and digitize all of those kind of the UK's kind of movements of regulated waste. And in that, what we're trying to do is future-proof that system by saying, well, what's going to happen is there's going to be more machine-to-machine sort of sensor-based inputs in terms of data capture. So you've got a range of different sort of systems. You've got systems that will generate spreadsheets. You've got systems software where we can pull data in through directly, or increasingly we have systems such as Pragmatic, you'll hear about in a sec, who have developed a low-cost RFID label. And in that case, the use case is tracking of waste tires. So we're accepting there's going to be a range of different data inputs from the many different players involved in the waste industry in the UK. And this system has to be able to accommodate that, but it also has to be able to accommodate new data inputs in the future as well. So on that note, I will finish, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Great stuff. The next speaker is Andy Crofts of Veevo.
Good morning, everybody. Massive thanks for this opportunity and great to see so many of you joining us today. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of Veevo, but before I do, just a little bit about myself. I'm the Director for Business Development for Veevo. Been in the company now for 6 years. Been in the waste industry for over 30 years now, and spent a lot of time with Nottingham City Council, where I was head of environment there for a number of years. So I'll quickly move on. So Veevo was founded back in 2010, and the 2 founders were actually in an apartment block in Helsinki, and we're forever having to call the waste management company to get their bins collected, and they kind of sat there and thought there's got to be a better way for waste management companies to have the ability to manage collections much more efficiently. And the first sensor was actually developed in that apartment block in their space that they rented, and we've kind of gone on and moved on from strength to strength from there. They made it in yellow, and they said it was inspired by Wally, who's the little Disney's little robot that went around collecting trash. So we've always found that as a very interesting story. So we actually now hold well over 100 patents for our technology. Everything is born and developed in Helsinki. Well, at Espoo, just outside of Helsinki. So it's all built and developed by our team that are based out of there. So we have full control of our technology and its quality and its effectiveness. So there's 4 parts to our solution. We've got the hardware, which is the sensor, which monitors we're currently monitoring in over 135 different types of waste containers. We've then got our analytics platform, where we then can see all of the behaviors and we can see all the service planning. Then we've got operational software. So this tracks waste behavior and trends. We're tracking containers and fleet status and things like that. Then we have our in-cab drive tablet, which is software which is optimized collections based on fill levels for the containers. So this is not a kind of fixed point routing system. This is actually based on collection schedules that are based around how those containers are behaving. So our solution begins with the sensor. So we've got our sensor is fully waterproof, it's shockproof, temperature proof. We've got IP69 rating and IK10 rating, 10-year battery life, and we've currently got, that figure's wrong now, we've currently got over 50,000 active sensors worldwide. So our customers that we're targeting, waste producers are our one of our key customers, because again, for them to understand how much waste they're generating gives them an opportunity to look at reducing the amount of waste, and it gives them also much better information around what kind of recycling rates that they're functioning at. The key one is the fill detection rate. So we're able to help those waste producers see when they're generating waste at particular times. And we found that actually within hospitality, certainly in the hotel business, we've been able to track food waste, for example, for breakfast time, where we're seeing that there's been a huge amount of waste, and that's been then fed back into the management team of the hotel, and they've then been able to sort of trace back in, well, actually, we've been cooking too much breakfast and a lot of that has been thrown away and things like that. So that having that granular data really helps the waste producers to make those changes. Local authorities and municipalities, again, we do a lot of work, and I would imagine around 50% of our sensors that are out there currently are in street litter bins. So we do huge projects with local authorities. We've got a couple of full city rollouts in the UK, one in Newcastle, one in Cardiff now, and they've been able to see a 50% reduction in resource that's been used for collecting street litter bins. Haulers are another one that we do a lot of business with, again, because if they've got information where they can see how quickly their containers are filling, fill up rates, and they can also see some historical collection data, that helps them to be more efficient and make those changes that we need to see. So we have a suite of management tools. So our hub system shows where we can see all of the analytics around the software, so we can see how waste is building up over time, and what that delivers there. That delivers that sort of really powerful data and insights that can help to reduce costs, accurately track and report waste and recycling. We're currently working in the commercial real estate area, because we're seeing that again, data is the very much required for them to look at their green credentials for their buildings. They've had lots of data, energy data, water data, but waste has always been an area that's really struggled to provide good, accurate, clear, concise data. So we provide, I've mentioned we provide a suite of tools. So we've got, for the sort of corporate teams, we've got our hub portal, and we do all the customized reporting. But then for on-site teams, we have mobile applications where they can actually see visibility into their containers. They can see current fill levels. They can see when the last collections happen, when the next collection is planned for. And that's all very simple, swiping the QR code on the side of the container. And we also do service notifications, so we can actually push out for haulers. We can push out service notifications to their customers again to inform them of when bins are going to be collected, or if there's been an issue around a collection not being able to happen, and they need to again push information back to the customer to keep them informed. So our hub portal, here you'll find sort of collection schedules, container management, fill level measurements, all the predictive analytics, collection detection, and service validation. Our key thing that sets us apart is the predictive side of things. So we use predictive analytics again to do a lot of forecasting around when containers need to be collected, and that helps massively when we start to look at planning for a lot of the resourcing, and especially with the driving and collecting those in an optimal way. Within the sensor as well, we also have accelerometer and temperature sensor. So we're tracking and tracing temperature, and again, we can inform any of our customers if we see sudden changes in temperature. This could mean that there's potentially a fire in the bin. And we also do tilt and location alerts. So we're tracking the container, and we can see if it's moved or if it's been tilted. So if it's been tipped over, we can pick up all of these bits of information and again pass that back to the customer or back to the hauler. Our site management, so we can see very clearly, we can see site views, so we can see whereabouts the sites have been located into, so we can see each container using latitude, longitude readings, and then you can also go in and see container information around how full it is and when it will be full, so you can see that current picture. We do a number of reporting solutions as well. So again, there's downloadable reports directly from Hub, and then we also use a REST API to integrate with other existing software platforms where we can create a bit more of a streamlined experience, so you can get that data processed and moved over in a much more quicker way. Our smart plans, this is where we take all of our sensor data and field level data, and that's integrated then into a smart plan where we create automated routes, and they're developed on a daily basis, and we use turn by turn directions to navigate the driver to each of those containers that need to be collected. I think I'm pretty much coming up to my 10 minutes now, so I'll pause there and say thank you very much for this opportunity to present, and I'll pass back to Paul.
Thanks, Andrew. Really, really interesting. And now, next is the second in our double header of Andrews. I'm pleased to introduce Andrew Kemp, CEO of Littercam.
Hello, good morning all. Many thanks for the opportunity to present this morning to you all in regard to the this waste sector presentation. It's a real pleasure to be here. So the background to Littercam, we are an organisation that uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to help detect environmental crimes, and also to help produce litter grading reports as part of extended reducer responsibility. We're currently prototyping 2 solutions. We're pre-launch and in advanced discussions with the UK government in regards to how we can deploy these 2 solutions nationally. But the idea behind the 2 technologies is to simplify environmental enforcement for statutory duty holders. This is for local authorities, organisations who have the powers to enforce environmental offences, and also for highway statutory duty bodies that are interested in reducing the exposure of their workforce to risk associated with litter clearance, and also to maintain their highways to a higher standard of local environmental quality. So the next slide here. So this first technology that we'll talk about is the litter grading solution that we're prototyping as an organisation. It's been originally designed for England's strategic highway maintainer, Highways England, to be able to retrofit a standard maintenance type vehicle to be able to detect and count litter at the side of the road, on the hard shoulder and verges, also in central reservations, and to visualize that map in an interactive map, so that street cleansing resources can be allocated to greatest area of need, and also to identify any areas of defect status in accordance with the Code of Practice on Litter and Refuse. And a later stage version of the software will also be able to perform brand analysis in much the same way local environmental quality surveys are done. So we have some fairly advanced discussions with brands and waste producers over here who are interested in being able to detect where their products are littered on the side of the road, to help inform more sort of detailed discussions at a extended producer responsibility system level that we've sort of touched on earlier on in this session. So the next video, sorry, the next slide that I'm about to show shows the actual prototype of the technology in action. If a play button appears on your screen, then please feel free to press the button. What I'll do is I'll just go back to the beginning of the video, if possible. The technology, the way that it works, on the right hand side of the screen, the litter will appear from that side. If we just go back to the next slide, that's fantastic. So on the right hand side, highlighted litter will appear. There'll be a coloured box around each piece of litter that's detected, and when it passes through either one of those vertical purple lines, it will perform a count, and it's this software that's used to perform the litter count and reporting. So if we can just play that video now. So that's the litter grading technology, and as I mentioned, it doesn't require any specific specialized grading vehicles to be used. We're having discussions with a number of refuse collection vehicle manufacturers here in the UK and local authorities in regards to being able to analyze the video streams of their existing refuse collection vehicles. So that's the first product that we're bringing to market, the litter grading technology. And in terms of the grading application visualization, we're very much viewing or believing that we'll create visualizations that can show by the time of the day where the greatest amount of litter has been detected, interactive maps that users will be able to sort of click on to show areas of defect status, and then being able to extract that information and inject it into existing waste cleansing collection duties, so that resource or what streets in collection teams can be allocated to the greatest area of need. Okay, so the next technology that I'll talk about is in regards to Littercam's vehicle litter detection technology. First of all, we've got a brief explainer video. It's just about a minute long that talks about the technology end to end. So if we could just advance across to the next slides. I'll just now show you via our portal the detection technology working in action. So hopefully I'm now becoming I'm now the presenter. So this technology, this portal now shows you a facility where local authorities can upload footage to Littercam's portal. It also enables us to show previously detected videos that local authorities have provided to us. So if I just show you a quick initial example here, this will show you a short video. It's designed to do two things. The first is to show where a vehicle is detected in a frame, that in much the same way as the grading technology, there'll be a coloured bar that appears around the corner of the vehicle, and then secondarily where litter is detected in the frame. When those two things happen together, up in the top left-hand corner, you'll see a sign appear, a littering sign appear. But critically, what we're looking for is the action of littering to be detected throwing out of the vehicle's window. So that's obviously happening at a really sort of slow speed. It's a fairly sort of sterile environment. I'll show you something that's just much more realistic and representative of a vehicle litter action. And this, using the same principles, you can see in the top left-hand corner the confidence levels of the technology. And these lamp columns are 18 meters apart, so you can see about 5 lamp columns back. We're detecting.
Andrew, sorry to interrupt, but I for one can't see your screen here.
Right. I have selected share screen. Let's have a look. Hopefully that's now starting to share the screen.
Here we go. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay.
Here we go. Yeah. So it was basically from when you started sharing the screen, we didn't get anything. So if you might want to go do the bit kind of 1 minute ago too.
No problem. That's okay. So the first video I'll just show. Let's have a look. So the way this technology works is designed to show or detect a vehicle in a frame with in the same way as the grading technology. There'll be a coloured square appearing around the vehicle, and then secondarily a litter object in the frame. And we're particularly interested in obviously litter being thrown from the vehicle window. That's showing the action of littering from a vehicle. I'll now show a secondary video which is happening at a much more sort of representative higher speed. There you can see just a plastic bottle as an example being littered from the vehicle, and that's the prototype technology that will be bringing to market in Q1 of next year. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much indeed.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andrew. Next, we have Sophie Walker, COO and co-founder of Disposal.
Hi there, I'm Sophie. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Disposal, who, along with our sister social enterprise, Your Disposal, is on a mission to empower people to know what happens to their waste and make better decisions around it by bringing transparency and accountability to the waste supply chain. Waste is something that every single one of us creates, but very few people understand. And most people, if asked to explain what they think happens to their waste or recycling, they say it's something like this. It's a simple chain. And most people think that their responsibility to that waste ends when it's taken away by a waste contractor. The fact is, it looks more like this. And this complex web of interwoven waste companies spans the globe. You have a legal responsibility to ensure that your waste is dealt with properly, as do those who handle it along the chain. But the current opaque and still largely paper-based system makes it extremely hard for you to be able to be sure that your entire waste supply chain is licensed and legal. As we've heard from the other speakers, historically, there's not been much waste data, and what data does exist tends to be siloed within companies or systems. And this lack of transparency enables criminals to take advantage of this low-risk, high-reward industry. As we've heard already, I mean, in the UK alone, waste crime costs our economy an estimated £1 billion a year, and the Environment Agency have labelled waste crime the new narcotics. Waste that ends up in criminal hands is, in circular economy terms, leakage from the system, and it's highly unlikely to find its way back to being a valuable resource. The Green Alliance reported in 2018 that if resource efficiency measures were implemented in just 5 areas, which were construction, food, textiles, vehicles and electronics, that the UK could make huge cuts to its carbon budget, as you can see from this chart. Of course, resource efficiency is, much more than just recycling on steroids, but effectively dealing with stuff once it's reached the end of its life is crucial. And to do that, we really need to understand the materials that flow through our economies as waste. And then those materials can begin to be more valuable. A bin full of nondescript rubbish has no value, but a bin filled with aluminium or batteries or PET has a value because it is something. And sadly, this is surprisingly difficult in the current system. Waste compliance is needlessly complicated, and the paperwork that we use to report on waste movements is lacking in specificity and granularity that we need to be able to understand the qualities of the waste we have moving around. To really allow us to move to a more circular economy, we need huge digital transformation when it comes to waste. And this means much more than just digitizing our paperwork. We need to lay the foundations to enable transformative digitalisation, which reimagines how we deal with waste. At Disposal, we believe that there are 3 fundamental pillars of this digital transformation. The first is we need to develop open standards and release open data. An open data standard is a set of specifications or requirements for how some sets of data should be made publicly available. And like the data that they describe, open data standards are generally developed in the open, meaning that anyone who is interested has a way to contribute. Based on the open standard, we need to release aggregated, anonymized open data on our waste supply chain so that it can be used and interrogated and analyzed and played with by anyone. And this will improve accountability and transparency, but it will also create value, and it will open doors for investment and enable innovation. In other sectors where they've done this, it has led to all sorts of new software and apps that most of us probably benefit from on a regular basis. So in sectors like public transport, things like Citymapper, or in open banking, where you can now link your bank information to a plethora of fintech apps, all of which have been made possible by the development of open data standards. The second thing is around what we call passive compliance. We must make it easy to do the right thing. I've spoken to countless waste compliance managers who find that keeping on top of their waste compliance is time-consuming and complicated. And almost all of them do it in a manual way. So Excel sheets, calendar notifications, folders full of documents. Almost all of them, however diligent, also miss things occasionally. If we want people to do the right thing, we need to make it much easier to do. And luckily, computers are great at these tedious tasks. And moving your compliance management online means it can be accessed by remote teams anytime, anywhere, which is obviously great during this pandemic. Lastly, we need to approach all of this from a systems thinking perspective. I mean, I've used the term waste supply chains, but chains imply a sort of linear, simple process, when the reality is that supply chains, both waste and products, are complex international ecosystems. COVID has shown the fragility of these supply chains and their interconnectedness. And so we need to approach these challenges with our eyes open to these interdependencies and our unintended consequences. So these 3 things underpin our approach, and I'm going to give you some examples of them in action in Disposal. So my first is our Peace of Mind dashboard, which is designed to improve transparency of waste supply chains and make it quick and easy for organisations to keep track of their waste contractors. The waste producers who have many waste contractors, or waste management companies and waste brokers managing hundreds of suppliers love how it simplifies and streamlines all those manual tasks. We recently signed a 10-year contract with Acumen Waste Services, and the technical director has said that using Disposal has already improved their processes and saved them lots of time. Compliance checks on waste companies also tend to be done at just the procurement stage or during annual reviews or audits, whereas Disposal allows you to follow your waste contractors, and because we use the Environment Agency Open API, you're kept up to date of any issues with their licenses and permits as the information comes directly to your dashboard. Waste companies also upload additional documents like their insurance certificates or accreditations, and both the waste company and the organisations following them get notifications before any document is due to expire. We also have a semi-automated duty of care audit tool and digital training modules that can be accessed via your dashboard. And my second example is our Waste Thesaurus. This is a map of all the countries that our users have visited from in 2020. And the vast majority of this traffic is driven by our Waste Thesaurus. In Europe, we're required to classify all our waste with a European Waste Catalogue Code or EWC code. Our Thesaurus links tens of thousands of keywords to the 842 EWC codes, so you can search for the waste type that you're looking for and it will help you find the right code. We think that we're the largest Waste Thesaurus that's openly available, and we've built an API for it so anyone can integrate it into their software. We get loads of great feedback about it. Like one of our customers who's a waste manager at a university said that one job that she expected to take her over 3 weeks only took her a couple of days by using the Thesaurus to help her classify the waste. We monitor and update it regularly, and I would love to say that it's like machine learning or AI, but the truth is there's just not enough data for that yet. And so at the moment, it's just my co-founder, Tom. And my last example is a project that we're working on funded by the Open Data Institute to develop an open data standard around information that the public want around their household waste recycling centres. And this project came about because we have every licensed site in England on our directory because of the EA public register, and we saw a huge spike in traffic to the household waste recycling centre pages during the early stages of lockdown when those sites closed and then reopened again. And lots of people were contacting us thinking that we were the council or the recycling centre, and it was clear that people were very confused. And when we tried to find the information out to help these people, we could completely understand why they were confused, because every council approached this differently, and trying to find the information on their website was incredibly difficult. An open data standard of this information and an open data set of it for the whole of the UK would make the council's jobs easier, it would make it easier for the public to find this information, and it would open the door for innovation. So I think that data and digitalisation can help us transform our rubbish into resources, but only if they're built on these 3 pillars of open principles, passive compliance, and systems thinking. If you'd like a demo of our Peace of Mind dashboard, please get in touch, and thank you ever so much for having me today.
Well, thank you, Sophie. That was excellent. And now our next speaker is Alistair Hanlon, CCO of Pragmatic.
Hi everyone, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this this great panel. Pleased to be here. So I'm Alistair Hanlon from Pragmatic. I'm here to talk to you about our technology. We've heard about lots of cool technology on the call so far, and hopefully you'll think this is another one. I think one thing to say is I don't think there's any one answer for all of this. So we're providing an alternative solution. So if I just go on to the next slide. So what we do at Pragmatic is we manufacture semiconductor chips. So here's an example. I'm holding it up to the camera, and there's one on the slide as well. This is what we call our wafer. So rather than using silicon, we use a whole host of new technology to make flexible, thin chips. So why is that relevant to the waste industry? Well, one of the first applications that we're solving is making the RFID, radio frequency identification, lower cost. So what we do is we take on one wafer, there's thousands of individual chips. And what we do is we put them onto something like this, which is a tag. And then that gets converted into usually some sort of sticker format like this. So what you can see is that our technology is very thin and flexible, so it's suitable for these kind of applications. And then it's also, you know, very low cost. And that's really where we started to get involved in the waste sector, because there was a real desire to be able to track waste, and that fits with our kind of company thinking. So we see a world where every object can have a unique ID. So things like drinks bottles or disposable items or car tires, things that we use every day, can now be given a low-cost RFID tag in the packaging, and that then can be put into, an ID is put into every object. So we go from a world where you've got millions of chips in computers to billions in the handheld devices that we use every day, to trillions in everyday objects. And our technology and the price point that we can create for those tags makes that possible today. So RFID has been around for a long time. What we're doing is reducing the price to the point where it's feasible to put it into everyday product packaging. And when you do that, what that gives you is it gives you benefits throughout the life cycle of that product. So from the start of life, the manufacturers can be tracking when was it made, what batch was it from, is it a genuine product, through tracking it in the supply chain, and then in store or in online store nowadays more likely, and in the home, customers can be interacting with the product. And then when it comes to getting rid of the product packaging, the consumers can be doing things like tapping the product packaging with their mobile phone, being informed about how to correctly recycle that packaging. And then it goes into the waste management system, where that tag and that identifier can be used to provide a unique identity for each individual package. And so how to treat that package and how to recycle it correctly can be determined. So we heard earlier in the presentation about waste crime and the rise of that. One of the hot areas in the crime, in the waste crime areas, is in tires. So as Mike from Toplytics mentioned earlier, we worked on a project with the UK's Tyre Recovery Association. So this is the industry body that represents car tyre recoverers. So there's about 40 million used car tyres come off cars in the UK every year. And this was a UK government funded project in partnership with the Tyre Recovery Association. And what we did was we applied these kind of tags to individual tyres. So as they were being collected from the garage, the tag would quickly be applied, and then that could be read at various stages through the waste processing cycle. So as it was being collected, the waste processor would be able to automatically generate a report for how many tyres were being collected. And this reduces fraud and the risk of the wrong number of tyres being recorded. And then as it goes through its processing, then at each stage, the ID can be read on the tyre, and then data can be collected about how much of that has been recycled and where did it go. And for example, you know, if there's a pile which is going for export, you can understand how much material is being exported. So that's one example of where we've used low-cost RFID tagging to track waste items. We're actually now expanding beyond that project and into several other areas. And so, just to mention that we worked with Toplytics on that project. And so we're expanding into several other areas where we think our low-cost RFID technology will be applicable. So one of those is expanding the kind of industrial waste into tracking things like bagged waste. We've been approached by companies who have multi-tenant buildings, typically offices or retail. And increasingly those offices, the people that work in the offices or the companies that run those offices and retailers, they have a corporate desire or a corporate mandate to be able to report the amount of waste that they're using, how much that is being recycled, how much is going to landfill. And so all companies now want to be able to report on that. And so the waste management companies who are dealing with those are looking for ways of measuring how much waste is coming from each of the individual renters in their properties. And so one way to do that is we can apply low-cost RFID tags to the bagged waste that's coming out of the offices. Usually this is handled manually by someone doing it. And then the bags can be either just counted, or ideally they can be weighed. and then the weight of the bag relative to which office it came from can be measured. And again, all of this is quickly uploaded to the cloud to various software systems to be able to track how much waste is being produced in that place. So obviously this could be applicable for things like hazardous waste, where you need to handle each bag on a time, and other kinds of industrial waste being produced. And we've also seen quite a lot of interest in the idea of having the next generation deposit return schemes. Because our tags use sort of industry standard RFID, it's possible to build very low cost smart bins. So we're working on a project now with a major drinks manufacturer who's looking at adding NFC, near field communication, the kind of thing that's used for mobile payment, to their bottles, and then enabling some smart bins with that technology. So consumers will be actively rewarded for returning used bottles. So there'll be a scheme where perhaps you pay a deposit on the bottle, or you just get a reward for recycling behavior. And what this does is it means that the bottles can be assured to be of a certain quality, and that then goes and creates a more valuable waste stream by applying these tags. And then the third area that we're working on is actually in the industrial scale, is scaling up the sorting using RFID. So there's various different ways of sorting waste using various optical methods at the moment. But one option that we're looking at is, could you use these low-cost RFID that's had value right through the value chain or through the supply chain for this particular product, right from the point of manufacture right through to waste sorting? Can we use that RFID tag to be able to help sort the waste? Now, it's unlikely we're going to be able to add an RFID tag to everything, but imagine if we could add RFID to the very premium bits of waste, the highest quality waste plastics that are being recycled. And if we could identify and pick those out based on them having a tag. And each one of those can have a globally unique ID on it, so we know where it came from and where it moved from and to. Now, you know, we don't have all the answers as to what you would do with that data, but we think there's a great deal of value in being able to understand the movement of waste from one place to another and be able to map that in software platforms and then make predictions perhaps about where to send lorries or where to enable circular economies type recycling schemes. So the key thing here is adding this low-cost RFID with a unique ID on each item means that you can get a huge amount of data about where materials are moving around within the waste ecosystem, both within a country and internationally as well. So that was it from me. One thing to mention finally, though, is it's not just about adding IDs to waste. We're working on a project with the National Health Service here in the UK. National Health Service does, well, a few years ago did 1.1 billion tests per year. So these are things like blood tests. Obviously, I imagine now it's a great deal higher than that. But one of the problems they have is that when they physically take those bottles and test people, they have to use a lot of plastic to wrap them up and make sure they're safe. So we're working with a company called Quality Hospital Solutions here in the UK. And the brand name for their solution is Sample Pod. So if you want to, you can go and visit the website, which is down the bottom there. And what we're doing is we're reducing the amount of plastic being used to handle those human specimen samples, and we're adding the RFID tags as a way of doing that. And this project, as an example, has the potential to save about £400 million a year in the NHS. So it's not just about bags of waste and waste car tires. We're actually able to use this technology to reduce the footprint of adding waste into the cycle as well. And that was it for me. If you need any more information, then please do get in touch. My email address is on the slide there. And thanks again for the opportunity to speak.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alistair. That was really interesting. And now, last but not least, our final speaker before we move to the Q&A is Jane Watkins from KTN.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the invite to speak here today. So last but not least. And it's really good to see so many innovative solutions this morning. It's been a real eye-opener. Waste is a huge problem. I'm going to be talking about a much bigger picture now. So I'm going to talk about the KTN. What is KTN and how we can support companies. And then I'll be moving on to how KTN can support the net zero commitments, and look at an external point of view, and position, our position in the landscape and how we can support companies. And then I'll be looking more closely at regional work enabling green recovery. So first of all, KTN and our objectives. Basically, we aim to increase business-led R&D. That's our ultimate aim, and to facilitate exploitation of R&D to capture more UK value from innovation. So the whole idea here is to innovate and to increase collaboration between business to business, and also business to research base as well, for the UK benefit. And we aim to be a strategic partner of choice for innovation networking, and we provide a breadth of expertise for business looking to innovate. We do have quite a unique position in the UK innovation ecosystem, and we do interface with both public and private sector. And we work very closely with the UK Innovation Agency, Innovate UK. But for me, what the KTN does is it connects ideas and people and communities to drive innovation that can change lives. So it's looking at real solutions, just like we've been looking at today. And it really does exist to connect innovators with new partners and new opportunities. And it's beyond the thinking and to accelerate ambitious ideas for real world solutions. So just to give you an idea here, we have a very much across sector teams, and we have very powerful connections across those teams. And the idea is to focus on bringing groups together which wouldn't normally meet. And we also work across many areas, looking at sustainability, waste is part of that, looking at international collaborations as well as access to finance. Just to show you our reach, so last year we had over 200,000 network contacts, and we have networked with over 45,000 organisations, and we have done 421 events with just over almost 33,000 delegates in attendance, and currently we have just over 55,000 active subscribers on our newsletter. So in terms of the KTN commitments, net zero, and obviously waste is a big part of this as well. Net zero is a prominent part in our new strategy. We launched our strategy just over a month ago, and the scale of change to meet the 2050 targets is enormous. And experts, we need a huge, and this is huge, and we need, for this change to happen, it needs to bring opportunity and to be a leader to make this happen. So like our wider strategy, we also have a series of commitments towards net zero as well. We've not got time to go through them all today, but I'm going to concentrate on the top two. And we have a lot, we're doing an awful lot at KTN, and we're looking at what we can do to springboard into other areas and other sectors. And think outside the box for everyday solutions. So from an external point of view, I mean, there is a huge amount of external reports, and everyone is looking to do something. And we're looking at what we can do and what we can focus on to make the maximum impact. So the UK was the first to set legal targets and to scale of change to meet the 2050 target. It's enormous. So we need to bring that change, to bring about opportunity. So change always brings out opportunity, innovation, and it's a key to making it happen. So we do need a sustained interventions across multiple sectors, and it's going to be extremely complex. So in terms of Innovate UK and KTN's position, so in terms of KTN's position in the landscape, what we're aiming to do is connect zero net zero innovators with established industry. So there's an opportunity here where industry, has to meet net zero targets. And to identify enabling technologies for net zero, and this will play an important role in meeting the targets, and KTN can identify and accelerate them. And then obviously cross-sector learning is extremely important to bring together solutions that would never have been thought of, and thinking out of the box, and maybe bringing solutions that wouldn't have even been thought of. And then we have supporting the development on the low carbon supply chains. And this plays a part, especially with COVID-19, where we've had change in resilience, and where we've, what we've seen this year already, where companies have had to adapt and had to change. So this is an opportunity. And then, of course, there's cross-sector policy and insights will also play a part in this. So overall, we're trying to bring innovators and established industry together, bring about new solutions towards the net zero. So if we look across our portfolio, what we did, these are just a number of the projects that KTN are working on at the moment, the projects we're working and involved in. And we've split it up really into 4 areas. So we have decarbonisation, which is the reduction of the fossil fuels. And then we have circular economy and sustainable innovation, which I guess the waste will come into. And that we're doing a large number of projects, including Zero Waste Scotland, and we're working on Commonwealth Marine Plastics, where we're setting up a secretariat to bring R&I together in marine plastics across the framework, across the Commonwealth, sorry. We also run the Circular Plastic, UK Circular Plastic Network. We also have a net zero chemical manufacturing. So we have a broad base in terms of what we're doing in the circular economy and sustainable innovation. Place also has an area in this, and we work very closely with Innovate UK on the ISCF challenge and the decarbonisation for industrial clusters. We've also been working with the Southeast LEP Energy Hub, which I'll go into more detail later, and looking at decarbonisation of ports. And the SIG stands for Special Interest Group. So what we try and do here is bring together groups that wouldn't normally meet, and try to bring them together to come up with solutions. And this then can be fed into Innovate UK, where we might have new challenges and bring about new challenges to be able to address those societal challenges. And then obviously the enabling technologies for low carbon economy and investment programs as well. So that is our portfolio in terms of how we work and we can support companies. What also might be, we have also an IX challenge, which I can also go through with you in detail, more detail on the next slide. So in terms of from a regional point of view, so the KTN has been doing quite a lot of regional work around enabling green recovery, and this is a cross-sector activity, and between the clean growth and infrastructure team, working with the enabling team at KTN. And we have been engaging with lots of local authorities, and more specifically recently we've been working with the energy hubs, which are funded by BEIS, and that are targeting massive acceleration in decarbonisation and green recovery in regions across the UK. And we did an event last month on a specific challenges focused on one of these energy hubs. And the 3 that are listed on the screen around grid constraint and energy network innovation, decarbonisation of refuge vehicles, like the big engines, for example, buses, etc., and looking at the home energy retrofit, which is most challenging because it's a suite of innovations that's needed to do that is going to be on a massive scale. And just to give you some idea, in this region, in the Southeast region alone, 42% of the population live in that region. So retrofit has massive options and are dynamic, and it's not one solution will fit all. So the plan is that we will do this in 3 more regions before Christmas. So that's phase 1. And then in phase 2, we'll be moving after Christmas, looking at the devolved regions and challenges on green recovery. And the questions we are asking is, have these regions got challenges that we can reach innovations that have proper solutions, both in energy and in the enabling sectors, to be able to solve those challenges? So we're trying to bring together the sectors together to be able to have new solutions and identifying, of course, the challenges within the regions. We also have KTN have an innovation exchange, and this came about when our CEO of KTN and Innovate UK recognised that there are companies and there's challenges that they need a supply chain to solve, but haven't really got those supply chains at their fingertips. And can we have a sectorial challenge pitch out, sending that out to the innovators across the networks to be able to sell those solutions? And what we recognise with the challenge, it might not be in that sector now, or it might be a different sector that might be ready applied for that challenge. So, for example, there was a challenge recently of problems with a wind turbine blade, and it wasn't even mentioned that it was a wind turbine blade in the challenge brief. It was just a large component that had defects and needed detecting. It needed detecting, and the innovators bid into it. The innovator that won never worked in that sector before. They actually worked in the defence sector, and his solution was transferable into that sector, and is now working with Siemens. He's working with Siemens Gamesa, and they're negotiating at the moment an 8 million global contract with an OEM. And the SME was a startup. It was only very small, and it's grown now from 5 to 11 employees, and it has 15 vacancy now because of such a rapid expansion. So that is just a really good example of how we try to connect innovators, companies together to solve solutions. So if you want to get in touch with me and how KTN can help, my details are there. I in fact work in the European programs team at KTN, but also I'm very well connected obviously with the sector teams as well, so I can put you in touch with the experts in the sector teams also. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Jane. So now we've got a bit of time left, not too much, but a little bit of time left for the Q&A. I see we've got one in the chat, and this is obviously your chance to ask questions to now. I'm going to hand over to Sam Brindle, our trade and investment advisor, who will moderate the Q&A session.
Hi everyone. Thanks very much for these fantastic presentations. Now it's a chance to open up the floor and hear some questions from some of our participants. So to confirm, we had somebody asking if you'll be receiving the presentations of the panel speakers, and the answer is yes. We'll make those all the presentations available to you after this webinar. The webinar is also being recorded, so we can send you the recording of that as well. We have a question from Miguel to say, Illegal waste streams are a hot and common topic. Do you know what's the percentage of criminal waste versus generated waste movements? And is there an estimation of money losses? So I'm going to open that up to our panel.
Yeah, I'm happy to have a first crack at that, Sam. It's Jacob here.
Thanks, Jacob.
So yeah, I mean, we've commissioned at ESA, at the trade body, we've commissioned a number of studies looking at waste crime and the scale of criminal activity. I think I mentioned earlier that we estimate that about 2 million tons, this is in the UK figures, about 2 million tons of household and commercial waste leaks into the illegal sector, and that's out of about 50 million. So what's that? That's about 5%-ish on household and commercial. But the total volumes are much higher, certainly on construction waste, a lot of construction waste, and I think possibly even 8 figures in terms of tons. And I don't know off the top of my head what sort of proportion that is of total construction waste. And in terms of the cost, well, we estimate that the cost of the UK of dealing with that illegal waste is about £1 billion a year.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks very much, Jacob. I hope that answers the question for you, Miguel. So here's an open question to Michael, Sophie, Andrew, and Mike. Which are the main concerns of your customers? One of you wants to take that one first.
I'll take that if you like. It depends on the customer, but if you're thinking about a company that's a waste producer, so that's a company that's a manufacturer or a retailer or utility, and it's generating commercial and industrial waste, or it's selling products that would go into the post-consumer waste stream. Certainly the big question that we're starting to answer is what happens to that material. So that's a kind of, definitely that question is of growing concern, and part of that is driven by knowledge of that material perhaps isn't ending up where it should be, and it's also partly driven by really taking a serious look at resource efficiency within the business, and also clearly looking at circular economy and ways in which they could reduce that material becoming a waste in the first place, but also could they improve the outcomes and improve the levels of recovery for that material. But before they can do that, they really need to understand what that kind of waste flow looks like from their operating sites. So we would certainly see that as a growing question coming from the waste producers.
Great, thanks very much, Michael. I don't know if anybody has anything else to add.
I'd be happy to add something to that.
Okay, thanks, Sophie.
So our software kind of is useful to lots of different people, and so actually we find that the needs are very different depending on which which customers we're talking about. And so our kind of waste industry customers certainly seem to have a lot of challenges in terms of managing those complex supply chains and trying to keep on top of all of that information. So that's one of the big drivers we see from them, is trying to make that kind of compliance piece quicker and easier, because essentially it's something that they have to do, but it doesn't bring any value to the business. And then, yeah, from the waste producer side, certainly much more like what Mike was talking about, where people are kind of starting, well, some waste producers are starting to be interested in their waste and what they might actually be able to do with it differently, to kind of to see it more as a resource rather than just the burden that it is at the moment. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Okay, so we've got another question here in the chat, and it's a question for Alistair. Is Pragmatic working in other types of hospital waste? We've got Alistair on the line.
Yeah, sorry for the delay, just clicking the buttons.
No problem.
We're not currently working, but I think in general, we think there's an opportunity in hospitals, where people want to know that waste has been incinerated, for example, has been got rid of. In the UK, there was a recent high profile case of clinical waste not being treated correctly. So, you know, it's something we'd be open to. So if there's a project, we'd be interested to do that. One thing we are doing is part of our business is in the kind of medical devices area, in particular, where you've got some kind of medical device that has replaceable cartridges in it or replaceable elements in it. And so one of the things we can do is add some electronics to those cartridges to make sure that the right cartridge is being used in the right medical device. And so that's applicable for lots of other applications as well. But, you know, in the medical field, it's particularly important that you get the right dosage and the right pieces working together. And so once those pieces have been used and maybe the drug's been delivered, then we can again use that tag to make sure that the item is disposed of correctly.
Great, thanks very much, Alistair. I'm going to hand back over to, oh, let me just check. Yeah, we haven't got any more questions in the chat, so I'm going to hand back to Paul now for him to close the event. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Sam. So yes, we have 1 minute to go, so finishing bang on time. British punctuality for you there. I hope you've all enjoyed the webinar. We've heard some really interesting solutions. We've heard solutions for digital transformation of the waste ecosystem, expertise in innovation and connecting participants in the ecosystem, low-cost flexible electronic tags, sensors to measure waste generation and manage containers, crime deterrent cameras, using big data to make the system more transparent. So many really interesting technologies and solutions that I really hope what you were looking for. Like I said earlier, we're at DIT Barcelona. We're always on hand to help, so feel free to get in touch if you'd like to hear more about the companies or hear about the services that we offer. And once again, thanks for joining and enjoy the rest of the day. Que tengan buen día.